problems and challenges. We are an inclusive group interested in all kinds of businesses and all kinds of entrepreneurs. We're sponsored through the Kauffman Foundation, very generous in their support, and they help give us both the programmatic support, the technology that helps support everything that goes on, as well as the funding and brand management. So we're very grateful to the Kauffman Foundation for the great work that they do in encouraging, inspiring, and sponsoring entrepreneurship all over the country in hundreds of chapters across our nation. So we're very grateful to the Kauffman Foundation. So I want to introduce us a little bit to the format that we'll be working with today. So we use presentations, not pitches. We are focused on creating an inclusive environment. So we are interested in everyone being able to jump in and ask questions, and we provide the format. So today, given that this is a hybrid environment, we want to make sure that we're acknowledging everyone who is online. So please be encouraged to raise your hand. So there is an icon, just use the reaction icon to do a little hand raise, and we will make sure to call upon you, as well as for those who are in person. So make sure that you raise your hands when you're interested in participating. And one thing that we all know, given the nature of things like the pandemic, we all have learned to make sure that we put ourselves on mute when we are not asking questions. So just make sure that you observe those common courtesies. Now I want to introduce us to our space sponsor for this event. So I'd like to bring up Eddie to talk a little bit about the Mason Enterprise Center and the great work that Mason has been doing for entrepreneurs. So please, Eddie.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Scott. Very quickly, the Mason Enterprise Center is a joint venture of George Mason University and the Fairfax City EDA. We've got over 15,000 square feet and about 30 location here. We've got 35 companies that we're working with internally, about 50 companies that we're working with in the community. And we're looking for more innovators. There's, you can work at a co-working space, but there's no assistance for you. Assistance, guidance, counseling, that's what we provide here at Mason Enterprise Center. We've got a wonderful facility. We're building a great community and culture, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Eddie. Eddie and space sponsors like Eddie are the reason that we're able to host a lot of these events. So if you're ever interested in being a space sponsor, let us know. The other thing is, if you are interested in helping us organize 1 Million Cups, we have a wonderful team who meet every Monday to talk about what we're going to do each week, work with speakers, make sure that we are in a good spot for every week. So many hands make light work. If you're interested in joining us, we would love to have you. And with that, I want to introduce you to this week's speaker, who's going to facilitate a discussion for us. I want to introduce you to Gresham Harkless. She's going to be our speaker for today, and we're very excited to have her and to hear the many wonderful things that, the many things that he has for us today. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully I don't, let down anything and anybody was expecting to hear somebody else, but I appreciate
We've got to figure something else.
Can't hear me? Okay.
I hear him.
Anybody hearing me now?
I hear you.
Okay. Should I keep going?
It sounds like there's an echo in the in-person room.
It's intentional to annoy you.
Hang on 1 second.
Okay.
The microphone.
This one's muted.
Okay.
There's no mic.
Be quiet.
It's Eddie's computer.
Oh. All right, hang on 1 second. Go ahead, Gresham.
All right, you can hear me now?
Fine.
Is this supposed to be on mute?
But it's. All right. Can you say something? All right, wait a minute. Sorry, just a moment.
You know, you just turn it
Yeah,
off.
yeah, that's what it-
Do it from the back, so it's. One of those speakers. In here, one of these is speakers.
Hang on a second.
That be on, but.
It's the outs. It's, I think, see, the microphone, this microphone is taken over for this.
Got it. And that means it's muted, right?
I think, yes.
Yeah.
So the speaker is turned off. The deep speaker here is turned off.
Try that. Let's see what makes it.
First.
Okay, Gresh, let's try that.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. Perfect. So my name is Gresham Harkless. I'll just kind of give a little bit more about me. So I'm in Springfield, Virginia, actually now. I kind of grew up in the Northern Virginia area, went to school at Howard for undergrad, Georgetown for my master's. Very much so a busybody. So I've had my digital marketing business the last 10 years or so. And while I was doing the business, I actually have been very, I guess addicted might be the right word, to entrepreneurship and business, and just learning as much as possible about like what it means to kind of start a business, what that looks like. And it started out initially like with a blog called CEO Blog Nation. And then it has kind of blossomed into many other things. So one of the things I wanted to kind of, ask the challenge question around, but also present around was this kind of new concept called CEO Hack Buzz. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to kind of share my screen, but I don't know if it won't let me right now. But basically what I've been able to do kind of over the last, I want to say 5 or 6 years is I interviewed over 1,600 people for my I Am CEO podcast. And it was a daily podcast where I interview entrepreneurs, CEOs, find out, why they started their business, advice that they would have for other business owners. And one of the questions I asked consistently was around CEO hacks. And those CEO hacks were essentially like apps, books, or even habits that people have that made them more effective and efficient. So what I started to do is, because I'm very much so a geek around, technology and, how things work, and just figuring out how you can kind of MacGyver, if anybody, remembers that reference, to different things together. I just kind of created a compilation of like some of the things that I use, but then that started to blossom into some of the things that people mentioned on the show. And I would always look for consistent trends. If people mention things over and over again, if it was a book, it's like, okay, well, I have to check this out. So what I wanted to kind of, touch on was this concept of basically creating essentially like a premium newsletter of like CEO hacks that could be used for the business community. These are not just kind of listing out the hacks, which I've already, worked on and will continue to kind of populate kind of like a directory of those listings, but kind of bridging the gap between not just what the hack is, but how you could potentially use the hack in your business and kind of leverage that. So Let me share my screen. So everybody hopefully can see my screen. Okay, perfect. So this is the CEO Hack site. Like I mentioned, there's lots of different like kind of resources. I've had, the whole concept of it is to help entrepreneurs and business owners to succeed. The equation I talk about is I say visibility plus resources times connections equals success. The resources are really like the things that you wish that you knew about that can kind of be a little bit more tangible to help you to kind of leverage your business. So this site has kind of like a lot of the hacks that I kind of mentioned. They're categorized under different subcategories. Like you have AI, which is of course is growing, and I'm sure I'll probably talk a little bit more about that. If you're looking for something to help out with increasing your visibility, websites, things like that. So they're all kind of listed through here. Some of the hacks, and I continue to kind of add to that list. And like I mentioned, some of that came from like these podcasts that I've done. So I actually paused recordings of the podcast this year so that I can focus on what, would eventually become a new offering. And I wanted to test around different ideas. This is one of the ideas that I wanted to kind of get your feedback about and around. So essentially, like, during the interview, and I'll just click on one, I would ask 6 set questions. I'll ask the person to talk about their story, who they are, and what led them to kind of get started. And let me click on another one. But during the 5th or 6th question I usually ask is around a CEO hack, which is basically like, just something that really can help you I would say leverage more time than anything else. So that's kind of like what I wanted to compile on this site. So to bring you to my actual, I guess, problem discussion, what I wanted to talk a little bit around was like, pretty much, is this something of value? And probably to the other secondary challenge question of who it might be valuable to. So the idea is that CEO Hack Buzz is basically a weekly newsletter that's paid. That you would kind of learn some of those hacks, some of those things that you can use. If you've been online, you've heard like there's so many different AI tools, the chat GPTs, the things that are using chat GPT, just all these things that can quote unquote potentially save you time. But I think where there is potentially a gap is like understanding exactly how to utilize those. So that's essentially what I want to kind of send out through this this premium newsletter, or at least test the idea and hear your feedback on. So this site, and I don't know, I guess I could probably put it in the chat just in case too, if you want to take a look at it. But essentially I want to kind of load these newsletters with valuable hacks that people can use. So that could be books that you could check out. It could be how-to videos on how to leverage, certain technology tools. If you heard of, ChatGPT is great. You hear that it could do X, Y, and Z, and A, B, and C. But the question is, how does it actually help you out as a business leader and in the business community? So going through each of those things, showing you some things that you can kind of learn from each of these different hacks is kind of what I'm looking for. But the really big, thing that I wanted to kind of hone in on is I often said on the podcast, and one of the things that kind of came up a lot is that it's not the number of hours that you have in the day, it's how you leverage them. So part of what I wanted to do was to show you how you can essentially leverage it with different hacks. So for example, my podcast, one of the reasons I was able to do my podcast and do so many episodes while still having my digital marketing business was because I leveraged a project management tool that I use called Basecamp, and I used Acuity, which is a scheduling app. So different hacks like that people may hear about. They might say, okay, that's awesome, but like, what does that mean to me? How do I actually leverage that? So that's a lot of what I want to kind of, come out, through, this site. As far as pricing, what I wanted to do was offer kind of like a first movers advantage, like a founders that would be around $9.99. I'm been toying with the price being around $19.99 per month, or $15.99 per month annually, or per month, and then add that up into annually of being what that would cost. But again, that's something I would love to hear feedback around. But this is just kind of like a landing page that was put up that have some of the hacks, some of the, you can listen to one on each of the podcasts and then just that information there. But that's essentially it. Right now I have like a 7-day trial. Basically what that is if you sign up, you get 7, hacks that you can learn about, 1 per day. And hopefully you will want to like, become a member and, pay for that. But that's, pretty much, what I wanted to talk about a little bit is just, again, just understanding, is this something of value, who it might be of value to, and then the pricing part as well are my challenge questions. So hopefully that was helpful. And I could put this link in the chat if it's, helpful to everybody too.
Okay, so just so real quick. Yeah, we're gonna do moderating. If you would raise your hand icon in the chat, and then that way you'll be recognized. Reggie, we did have one question here in the room. Has this already launched, or like, is it already official and you're just trying to work out the kinks, or is it something that we're just kind of trying to figure that part out?
It's a combination of both. So the test site is live itself. It hasn't launched in the sense that it's, I haven't, accrued like the membership. So I haven't like put a, big push out about it, but
Okay.
I have kind of, the listing and things like that. I have asked it on the podcast. So I guess the correct phrase might be it's kind of soft launched and test phase.
Okay, so for your challenge, I guess the question was, is it more towards pricing and who would use it, or there's just a little bit of confusion, probably just because of like us, not, we could hear you, but we were going through and also trying to do some of the technical things on our end. So when you're offering it, are you offering it or marketing it right now with this soft launch through the podcast? Is that what we understand?
No, so I'm I guess offering it to anybody that is a CEO, entrepreneur, business owner. I was talking about the podcast being how it came about, because I was asking the questions. I didn't realize it was going to go into this, but I geek out on hacks. So I asked that through every episode, and then I realized that there's probably about 1,600 hacks that I have that just have been mentioned on the show. And then, with AI and all these tools that are coming out. So hopefully that answers your question. It was more just, yeah.
Yeah, totally answered the question. So we're going to open this up to the floor for Q&A. And if you would raise your hand icon, I will go ahead and we will get these people up. We'll start with Mr. Rutenberg.
Thank you, Tess, and thank you, Gresham. Just so that everybody knows, we asked Gresham on Monday if he could present on Wednesday, and he said yes, because he's a great member of our community. So thank you. The question I have relates to the pain points of the CEO. So what problem does this solve? Because as a CEO, I'm very freaking lonely among my other bad worries. So I think that's what you have to attack. And so talk about the profile, the pain points that a CEO is feeling all the time.
Yeah, a lot of what I was thinking of, focusing on was people usually after that initial startup phase. And it wasn't so much the loneliness. That's not as much to this, although it could be, down the line. But initially, it was somebody that has been in business probably, after that 3 to 5 years, and they have their business going, but there's just not enough hours in a day. So that's really what I was kind of looking more towards is attacking that. We're not going to get 25 hours. I've tried and tried and tried. I'm sure many of us have tried to get more hours out of the day. But there's different ways that we can kind of leverage it and look at it in a unique and a different way. So I think people that are past that first startup phase, you probably have a sustainable business. You probably have, maybe some type of revenue or budget or whatever that you would want to invest into, but it's not, and you would be willing to do that if you can, quote unquote, buy back more time. So that's kind of like the idea of this is that, you don't get more time, but you leverage it a little bit better.
Again, to attract an audience, you have to appeal to what hurts them and be perceived as the salve that saves them. And so in pitching this, I think you've got to speak to, even in a well-running company, sometimes I have to make a decision and I don't know what the best decision is. So if this is a resource for me, because other people have had to make similar decisions, or I can't get to everything, and there are 5 great things that I should learn to do. I think in your marketing of this and in testing it out, you got to find what's really bugging those CEOs and then take all your hacks and direct it that way.
Awesome. Thank you.
You bet. And thank you, man.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, we have a question in the room from Reggie.
Yeah, hey, Gresham, great job. I was wondering, just had a couple questions and a couple comments. Do you have like a goal for, let's say in 6 months or 12 months, how many people you want to subscribe to the newsletter?
I don't have an initial goal. I mean, I think the bare minimum, I mean, probably maybe over 6 months would be maybe at like 100 or so people at that price point, to kind of make sure it's, I guess, a viable idea.
And do you plan to resume the podcast at some point in the future, like once you get this kind of up and running?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the reasons I wanted to pause the podcast is because I wanted to be rowing kind of a little bit more in the same direction. So, I'm an ideas person. As you probably can tell, I've been on, I've been here speaking a couple of times. So my thought was that I could be a lot more strategic. If this ends up being something that does have opportunity, can roll down in that direction, then yeah, I want to resume the podcast. I want to be very even more upfront, like during my intake process of the podcast, of saying, hey, hacks are something that's very, very important. So if you have something, we really want to. So just I guess increasing the importance of that, for people to know. So that's kind of the idea, is that that will also, potentially feed people that are on the show that might want to, subscribe and things like that too.
So I think as you were talking, the idea that stood out to me was this idea of 1% better, right? I mean, there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of people kind of doing the same thing, just maybe curated a different way. But I think you can appeal to the idea that the busy, time crunched, high performing CEO is always trying to find something that will help them be 1% better, right? And so you have taken the time to put these people and ideas and tools together to help them achieve that, and so it's not about having all the ideas. It's about what you mentioned, the implementation, how do I use all this information to get, just 1% better at what I'm doing, because that makes a lot of difference in terms of revenue or productivity, things like that. So I would look at how you can appeal to the CEO as hey, this is not just another thing to add on, but this could be the one thing that gets you that 1% better, which is X amount of dollars down the road. And then another idea, just as far as positioning it, I would think about organizations that serve entrepreneurs and small businesses that you can sell a license to, right? And so they ultimately they essentially give the license away to all the entrepreneurs that are under that they provide for, right? So it's someplace like the Mason Enterprise Center, right? There's countless entrepreneurs here. Let's say you sell the license to them, and then they just distribute it, to the newsletter to the people that are part of the center. So I would look at a model like that where it's not so much one-to-one where you're trying to get people to sign up. You can still do that too, but how can you get a bunch of people to sign up at once and ensure that they're getting the content, and you're getting paid upfront from a bigger organization, and they're passing that value along to their people. So just an idea.
Awesome. Thank you, Reggie.
Okay. Yvette, would you like to come off mute to ask your question that was in the chat?
Thank you. Good morning. I certainly appreciate the idea that you have here. It's wonderful. I think, especially for business owners, whether they're CEOs or, sole proprietors, startup businesses are always looking for ways to really do things easier and quicker. So I think it'll work well there. I wasn't familiar with the term hack used in this type of settings purpose. So I was wondering if you could explain a little bit more how you came up with that term, because when I think of hack, I think of it in a negative sense. Somebody's trying to hack my things and take confidential information away. So I'm wondering if that normal term might kind of go against the positive impact that you're trying to make in your marketing.
Yeah, that's a great question and a great point. A lot of it came from life hacks. Like I think I read a lot of stuff about like how you can kind of get 1% better, just to what Reggie said, how you could do that even in your life. And I think that there's even hackathons, like I guess, and maybe it does, I guess communicate a little bit more towards the techie world, because I think they have hackathons where, sometimes I think that the Kaufman Foundation too has, like, you can have a weekend type hackathon where you have a business idea and you basically build it within a weekend and then bring it to fruition. So that's a lot of, where it came from, where it is kind of disruptive, but you're absolutely right. It does and can have a negative connotation. I think maybe that's where, because I guess maybe because I consumed so much of that's where it came from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carolyn?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Gresham. I'm appreciative of your website and everything. And I am, I'm kind of in that phase, but I'm still, having working a full-time job. But I'm thinking a CEO hack for someone who is like kind of got this as this side thing and they want to up it and next level it up. I think your CEO hacks would really benefit that group. And based on your where you niche down to 3 to 5 years, they're pretty much got a stable business going on and online, and they want to just leverage more time. I think you're leaving out a very crucial demographic there, in that true startup from 0 to 3 years, where they're really kind of like, do I want to now leave? When do I jump from having a job and then letting this new business really get me going? And what things can I put in place to get me there quicker? And I think your CEO hacks would be perfect for that demographic, me being one of them. But I felt like you just kicked me out the door when you said 3 to 5 years. And I was like, well, maybe, but, and your price points kind of put it in a place where it's more viable to someone who's starting up with that $19.99 price point versus an established CEO that's ready to just, put some things in place. So, I would think my comment is, consider that other demographic, that side job or side thing, or somebody who no longer wants to just be employed by their business. They really want to become a CEO, and focusing on them as well to let them use those hacks to move their business forward. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Caroline. And I wasn't kicking anybody else, so that's why I'm here. So thank you so much.
Okay, we've got a couple in the room. I'm gonna go with you first, and then I'll go with Norris, and then who else? Oh, Melinda will have a comment. So, all right, we're gonna go with in the room first, and then we're gonna go back to Dan Lunder. Will be after Melinda.
Can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Hang on one sec. Go ahead, Russ. Try that one more time.
Russ McIntosh, Vision ID Design. Good to see you, Crash. I've actually used your hacks on your website numerous times. I've got some interns that I needed to find a workflow situation. I'm like, oh, he's got it over on his website. And I went through and found what I was looking through on there. And I think it's a wonderful, wonderful tool that you offer. I'm just curious how you're trying to break it down into having it free on your website, having a premium in the newsletter, and then having the different tiers.
Yeah, great question. And I have to package that up, Russ, and put that on the site now. So for me, a lot of it was I was just listing them out. And some of them, like I think one of the questions I answered on the Google Doc was around monetization. There's different ways that it can be monetized. Subscription, obviously, then there's like an affiliate links, and then there's like sponsorship as the site grows. So what I was doing initially, like a lot of it just came from like, I'm geeking out on these things. Let me just list it out. It might end up being something down the line. And then I said, okay, well, I like this question. So now I'm starting to compile the ones. I started to add them in. So initially it was just like me putting it out there because the site was truly built on traffic. So what I'm trying to do is make a little bit of a shift or see if there's something that could be a little bit more product based, not purely about traffic. So that's where the newsletter comes in, as that's more of subscription. Like my plan would be to like still keep it up, because still if people click and it ends up being an affiliate link, or even if it doesn't, hopefully you'll still want to come back. But it's just a kind of another way that if somebody does want to subscribe, also know that it's like a valuable kind of product too. It's not all like the question Reggie asked about the number of people, like the number of people I would have to get to visit versus the number of people I would have to get to subscribe would be different. So it's just kind of seeing like there's two different, I guess, types of business models.
Okay, Melinda? Yep. And then it'll be Dan Linder after Melinda.
Good morning, everyone. Gresh, the question I want to go back on is your target audience, or that you said CEO. I started thinking about CEOs as I've gone after CEOs, and CEOs are really not good on free time. I was almost thinking that this is more of an entrepreneur's act or something, and that got me into thinking, well, you're also talking newsletters, and you've got a lot of communications people out there that maybe you want to look at different profit centers for different types of target audiences, and then look at people that are doing newsletters, and you're going to get tons of people doing newsletters, and there are newsletters specific to hacks. Because the hacking it's a great idea, and having different types of hack groups of breaking into sessions or whatever it might be by types of target audience that you're going after. I think you're finding yourself with the CEOs, and you're going to find you may get some new CEOs in the very beginning, but somebody who's a CEO has barely time to even have deals with their families at times, never mind be part of a group that's doing something like this. So I'm not sure. I love the concept. I love everything that you're doing, but I'm challenging you maybe to do some tests, call some CEOs up at different levels and see if this is something that they would do. But I think if you did the entrepreneurs, you've got all of the 1MillionCups target audiences out there, and you can test stuff with it. You can then start breaking that into groups, because there are people that are in marketing and communications that put together newsletters, and a lot of these, as you're talking about, are newsletter hacks. There are other types of hacks, and for example, I could do a whole series on hacks on your iPhone to take better pictures and how to focus the camera and how to make a picture pop. And I mean, the new iOS, there have been so many things that have changed that Apple has done that is just absolutely wonderful, and all the phones are doing it. You just spend sessions, you can do a whole month on things to do as a phone. And make it more efficient. The phone is secure and you carry it with you. But I love your concept. I love what you're trying to accomplish. I'm just challenging the time that a CEO might have to be a part of a group like this.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And well, so not to, I guess, go too much into that, but one of the reasons I used, and a lot of my sites are all CEO, is because there's actually a trademark on the word entrepreneur. that I found about, years ago. Entrepreneur Magazine has a trademark on the word entrepreneur. So I just kind of steer away from that, but I get exactly what you mean. And actually part of like the overall kind of reason that I started the I Am CEO podcast was because I wanted to kind of disrupt like how people define what it means to be a quote unquote CEO and what that means and what that looks like. And I there's this book called One Person, $1 million business. And there's a, even growing rise to the one woman, one man bands, but people that are able to scale their businesses in different ways. And they make, comparable revenue to like a larger organization, but they just do it differently. So I guess what I agree with you. I wanted to try to make it a little bit more of like an aspirational term. Like it's not that in the last question I asked on the podcast is what does being a CEO mean to you? Basically to die to disrupt that, because I wanted to showcase that everybody looks at it differently. Everybody defines it differently. And I didn't want to say it was one thing, but yeah, I was probably skewing more towards the, the busy, professional, the business owner, the entrepreneur, rather than the person in the quote unquote, I guess, ivory tower that doesn't have any time, like you said, to eat with their family, let alone to probably peruse a newsletter. They probably have somebody else on their team doing that, maybe. And I can't hear you. Okay.
Entrepreneur. If you switch it to entrepreneur acts.
I think I agree. They have a trademark though, so I want to steer clear of that word specifically, but maybe I could come up with something else. But I agree with you.
New business owners. I mean, you can come up with other things, or I can help you come up with something.
Brave individuals.
Or, so, individuals is, it's like saying anybody.
It's what I'm
too
saying.
general.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And that's why, and maybe
Stupid
we
people
even,
hacks.
we test it, you do it with 1 million cup entrepreneurs. You brand it a little bit or something. I mean, there may be some ways to tie it into 1 million cups.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And there are other ways to say entrepreneurs. Anyway,
Okay, let's go with Dan
Awesome.
Lender.
Thank you, Melinda.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Gresham. Very, very interesting. And this may be stuff you already know, but CEOs or leadership types and most entrepreneurs have very short attention spans, right? So if you don't set the hook quickly, you scroll into oblivion, because right now everything's a competition for eyeballs, right? So if you don't get somebody's attention right away, the opportunity goes away. So I think and what those people are interested in, as you probably know, is how to save time and how to save money. So and the old phrase, features tell, benefits sell, right? So if it's like you smack them right across the nose with a benefit, then it's amazing how much a really busy person will stop and spend time on something that they view as really important and something that interests them. So, and then as far as the name goes, whether it's a CEO, and I understand that the term entrepreneur is already trademarked, but then I'm thinking about something that explains the benefit, or it has the benefit in it, like, time saving hacks, or, whatever you want to name it, is something that can't be trademarked and something that may be available. And the last thing is that I'm thinking of things like, on like the Apple, the App Store. People don't go to their individual vendors to buy solutions. And so, and again, you probably already know this, but just have someone else do the selling for you. And you can have a very big organization with lots of eyeballs and reach, selling your product. So, whether it's the App Store or something else, or, the George Mason University, advocating and promoting your product, that's something that you don't have to do. So anyway, hope that helps.
Yes, definitely appreciate that, Dan. Super helpful.
Okay, thank you, Gresham.
And to close out the Q&A, we've got one more from Reggie. Comment?
Yes, I was gonna say, just consider how you can build exclusivity into it. I know that like people will pay to be a part of something that, not everybody is a part of, right? So, and I know I get a lot of newsletters, just as a business owner myself. So just consider how, it can be offered, how you can offer people something that they can't get anywhere else. and would be willing to pay, you know, a small premium for. So whether that's like access to, you know, certain level of people that, you know, don't come out of the house to do this kind of stuff all the time, but you have made it possible for, you know, Joe or Jane, CEO, to connect with this person in an exclusive way. Some kind of like first trial of technology or tool, like something that is going to give you that competitive edge, you know, where it's something that people can't get everywhere. And then also because you're a podcast guy, and you understand the power of different types of media, make it so I can get the newsletter if I want the newsletter, or I can get a podcast audio version of the newsletter, or maybe I want to sit and watch a video when I'm on a plane or something. So it might be a little bit more work for you, but give it to them in different ways, because you understand that, hey, some people are busy, some CEOs are like visual or want to see the content, you know, just give it to them different ways. So if it's really about the CEO, like I can get it the way that I want it. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Reggie.
All right, actually, we do have one more with Mr. Norris.
Hey, Gresh, how you doing?
Doing good, John.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I think you're breaking up.
Hey, just a quick comment. I was on your website and I'm looking at it. And again, I don't want to make you change this, but
Hang on a sec.
I think you went out for me.
hello?
I can hear you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you hear me, Gresh?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. My question is going to kind of reverse the way that you're doing this, just for something to think about. If I'm someone who has a problem, and let's just say I'm having a problem with converting from the internet. If your website said having issues, like what problem will your newsletter solve, instead of me say scrolling through 10 articles and then trying to figure out if I have a problem with one of those 10 articles that would be applicable to my situation, or what if it directs me away from my current problem? I think successful business is like what you've done with your other business, is you solve a problem. And I think if you turn this messaging from, instead of what a hack is, say, we know you have problems, we have shortcuts, we have ways to help you save time solving those problems. To me, I would be more engaged as a reader or user than I am to just go there and scroll aimlessly like on Facebook or Instagram to try to find clickbait. I think you'd have a better success rate of saying, are you having employee issues? Are you having financial issues? Are you having internet marketing issues? Are you having this, that, and then dig down with hacks related to the problems? I think you'd have more success engaging people. That's just my opinion.
It's almost like categorizing. If you're,
That's what I think.
Yeah, trying to find
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Because at the end of the day, there's, your problems are either going to be either with people or process. That's where your problems lie, or either with people or process. So if you could break down those categories within, say, process or people with quote hacks, to me, I would be more apt to read. I wouldn't read it just aimlessly on a newsletter right now. I'm just giving you my opinion. But if I had a problem, I know I could go to your website and say, how do you, there's 10 people giving comments on how to advertise on the internet. I'm going to be apt to read those because there's 10 people I could get ideas from, and I know where to go for it.
Yeah. And that's actually, no, I appreciate that, John. And that's exactly what I wanted to hopefully do, because I think there's all these different, like Dan was talking about features, benefits, like you hear about a hack, you hear about all the features that it gives, but you don't know how it's actually going to benefit you. So that's what I wanted to do, is just drill down with the videos to say, hey, this AI tool will help you to do X, Y, and Z and A, B, and C, which I know is probably a pain point. So yeah, that's what I was hoping would be valuable.
Okay, and with that, Gresh, the magic question. What can we here at 1 Million Cups do for you today?
Yeah, I mean, anybody, of course, that you think that, might be interested in providing feedback or testing out or just anything like that, I would love to get more and more feedback. I appreciate you all, giving me the opportunity to kind of speak and, talk about some of the ideas I have going on in my head. So I always appreciate, being a part of this and let me know too if there's anything I could do to help out anybody.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Attaboy.
Way to go.
Thank you.
We're gonna really briefly, since we don't have slides up, really briefly talk about events that are in our area. We do have some business events that we normally have up, and we find those at the Central Fairfax Chamber of Commerce under their events tab. Karen Small, I believe is on the call. Is there anything that you would like to highlight or showcase event-wise?
Yes, thanks for the opportunity. The only thing I have, it is a company, Seven Spaces, which is located on Old Lee Highway in Merrifield. And I mentioned this last week. They are having their ribbon cutting and open house for their new innovative co-working spaces. The invitation is open to all. If anyone is interested in attending, I will put the information in the chat. And the event is from 6 to 8 p.m. this evening. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. I do know that the Fairfax Economic Development Office, along with the Central Fairfax Chamber of Commerce and the Old Town Fairfax Business Association, will be hosting a summer crawl. So for those of you that want to network and have some socialization in Old Town Fairfax, that will be Saturday, the last Saturday of the month. So that'll be the 24th from 12 to 5. And it'll be a great way to support local small businesses in Old Town Fairfax. If anybody else has any other events to share, yes, Russ.
Okay, tomorrow there is a business after hours for the Chamber of Commerce, Central Fairfax Chamber of Commerce at Capitol Ale House from 5:30 to 7. Come on out, or look forward to you. Next week is my middle of the month, middle of the week, middle of the day Fairfax Business Meetup. And we're going to have Food for Others as our speaker this month. And that's Patriots Pub and Grill next Wednesday, the 14th from 12 to 1. And then the end of this month, I'm having a Sat Art Day Artist Showcase where I'm showcasing local artists in the Fairfax area. And that's going to be at McKenzie's Pub and Grill right in Fairfax, Old Town Fairfax, where Sandra's used to be and Herb's Ordinary used to be. That's going to be on Saturday, the 24th from 2 to 4.
Awesome.
That's all I got.
You should have more, Russ.
Yes, Yvette,
There is
we'll make
more.
sure to get those
It's on
events
Slate's
in
email.
writing as well. Okay, and then now I'm gonna back over to Scott.
All right, so be sure to check out all of those amazing events. We look forward to seeing you at many of those. So if you haven't already, make sure that you save the chat. The chat will have a lot of the contact information, a lot of the comments. So make sure to capture the chat before you go. We also want to encourage you to follow us on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, on any of those social media accounts. Please feel free to follow us. And we just want to thank you for coming today. Thank you so much for Gresh for the wonderful discussion and teaching us about the CEO hacks. We'd love to see you again next week. So thank you so much for coming and hope to see you again this time next week.